Ohio State's non-conference schedule is officially here, and my biggest takeaway is not an individual game. It's that Jake Diebler, head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes, believes this team is ready to be tested immediately. There are opportunities all over this schedule to build an NCAA tournament resume outside of Big Ten play, but there's also a couple areas and a couple games where things can get away from Ohio State. Let's get into the schedule reveal. We kick it off just showing it to you. If you're watching here on YouTube, the Buckeyes have 4 big games to start out the season in the non-conference. The first comes in the first game of the year against BYU. That'll be November 2nd. That game is a neutral site game technically in Salt Lake City. Another big one to watch, Friday, November 13th, Ohio State will take on UConn. That game at UConn in Storrs, Connecticut. The Buckeyes also will play Vanderbilt. This is the only home marquee game Ohio State gets on its schedule. 5 Power 5 games this year for Ohio State in the non-conference. This is the only one that will take place in Columbus. That one, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving on November 24th. And of course, the CBS Sports Classic, Ohio State will take on Kansas Saturday, December 19th. In New York City. We know the tip time for this game, which is noon, and we know that it will be on CBS. Those are the only times and TV announcements that we have so far. And of course, there's also another somewhat big game for Ohio State. The Buckeyes will take on Notre Dame. That is at South Bend, Indiana. Ohio State takes on Notre Dame Saturday, December 12th. And then you've got a couple of absolutely cannot lose these games. Those are Youngstown State. That is the home opener for Ohio State on Friday, November 6th. The Buckeyes also play Marshall on November 9th. That's a Monday. Prairie View A&M on November 16th. That's a Monday. UMBC on Thursday, November 19th. The final bye game of November is Lipscomb on Sunday, November 22nd. And then into December, it's Stony Brook on December 15th. That's a Tuesday. And a week after that, on December 22nd, Ohio State plays Mississippi Valley State. That is the schedule for the Buckeyes. There are some games to break down here. Again, I've got 4 games that are must watch. Now, if you are, and there's nothing wrong with it, if you're a box score scanner, if you're more of a casual Ohio State basketball fan, there are 4 games you must have your eyes on this offseason. There's one game that you probably should watch. It would be a big resume booster for Ohio State. And then you got 7 bye games. Those are games that you just absolutely cannot lose. We will start with the must-watch games first. Let's talk about this BYU matchup to start. This starts here for Ohio State. This is the second year in 3 seasons where Jake Diebler has said, as head coach of Ohio State, we want to face someone who is legitimate. Last year, they kicked it off with IU Indy. The year before that, in Jake Diebler's head coaching debut, Ohio State took on Texas, won that game 80-72. BYU obviously led by Kevin Young, a head coach, and then you've got Rob Wright there for BYU. Did Ohio State really enter the BYU Rob Wright sweepstakes when the season ended in the transfer portal window a few months ago? Yeah, maybe. They might have kicked the tires a little bit. Insider subscribers know. Views from the Schott podcast.substack.com. Join the chat if you want insider intel. Rob Wright last year, 18 points per game, 4.6 assists per game. Extremely efficient scorer for BYU as well. And he made 41% of his attempts from behind the arc last year, did Robert Wright as a member of the BYU Cougars. Now, his efficiency decreased a little bit when BYU lost Richie Saunders, but so did everyone's on that team, so I don't think that's necessarily a huge deal. What is a huge deal for BYU is bringing in Bruce Branch. Bruce Branch, the number 6 overall recruit, 5-star in the class of 2026, at the same position as Ohio State's Anthony Thompson, ranked just a couple spots above Anthony Thompson in the class of 2026. Same exact position, big, long player for BYU, developing his guard skills a little bit. He can shoot it from deep. He can shoot it from mid-range. The most productive, the most efficient, not necessarily, but he's shown some sparks at times from behind the arc, at least in his high school and AAU days. So that's a player to keep an eye on as well for BYU. This is going to be a really, really fun matchup between Ohio State and BYU because we should see a lot of pace. We should see a lot of offense. And we're going to see two 5-star recruits at the same position go at it from the class of 2026 and Anthony Thompson and Bruce Branch. And then you've got Colin Chandler. Now, I don't know about you. If you're looking at Colin Chandler right now, watching on YouTube, you're seeing a guy who just looks like a BYU player. And that's as specific as I can be at this point. Colin Chandler, 9.7 points per game last season at Kentucky, shot at 41% from the 3-point line as well. He can rise up. He can dunk it on you. Don't let his appearance fool you. He can rise up. He can finish at the rim as well. And then there's also questions about if Richie Saunders could potentially show up here out of the blue for BYU. He was drafted by the Grizzlies as of August 15th. He's one of like 4 players in all of the NBA draft who have not been signed yet. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. The 3-point shooting is going to be there. We know Colin Chandler can shoot it. We know Robert Wright can shoot it as well. The question is the defense going to be there for BYU? In addition to, is the defense going to be there? This is going to be one of the smallest, if not the smallest, Power 5 team Ohio State plays of its 5 non-conference marquee games. Kevin Young's 2 teams at BYU, not necessarily known, I guess I would say, for being elite defensively or even very good defensively. Elite offensively, yes, for sure. But defensively, I wouldn't go that far. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on here as Ohio State takes on BYU. Again, BYU, the number 28 team, number 38 team, according to Torvik, heading into the season. Ohio State, I believe, is 18th right now. So the Buckeyes should be favored in this game, would be my guess. Good chance for Ohio State to pick up a signature win to start the season and potentially start the season 1-0 as the next matchup in your must-watch territory of games for Ohio State this season is UConn. First thing we need to know, Dan Hurley, he's crazy. Head coach at UConn. This is a guy that you should probably watch just about any time you get the chance to do so. His antics on the sideline, they frighten me, frankly. They make me nervous. And they should probably make you nervous too. Even just watching on TV, you start to feel some secondhand shame. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for college basketball. I think Dan Hurley is a good thing for college basketball. I think controversy, stories, things like that. Jeremy Fears, not bad for college basketball. Bad for your opposing team's crotches, probably, but bad for the sport in general. No, same thing with Dan Hurley. He may be crazy, but I do believe he's good for college basketball. Ohio State will travel to UConn for this one. UConn is the number 11th ranked team, according to Bart Torvik coming into the season, and the number 1 ranked team in the Big East. UConn kind of used to being elite at basically everything at this point. Since 2021, UConn has finished 93rd in offensive rating and 88th in, I'm getting a call. And these numbers here for UConn they're just insane. Since 2021, let's look at it, okay? Finished 93rd and 88th in offensive and defensive rating, respectively. The year after, 99th and 96th. The year after that, 198th percentile in offensive and defensive rating. Now, a down year 2 years ago, they were only 97th percentile in offensive rating and 65th percentile in defensive rating. Last year, they followed it up with an 87th and 86th percentile in offensive and defensive rating. They've won 30 games in 3 of their last 4 seasons. They've made 3 NCAA Tournament finals over the past 4 years and won 2 of those as well. Obviously, just losing to Michigan last year. Michigan, I would say, if you're counting the past, 10, 15, 25 years of national champions, Michigan probably among the top 5-ish in that elite status. So UConn losing that game, I don't think that's necessarily all that bad for UConn, given what they've done over the past few years. But don't ask Dan Hurley that. Dan Hurley would probably knife you if you said that to him and just frown at you after that. He would make you, I don't want to get too graphic, but as you head home, I guess is what I would say, after a knifing, Dan Hurley is probably just pouting at you the entire time. All right, On to talent at UConn. You've got Silas Demery Jr. He returns after averaging 10.1 points per game last year for the Huskies and 5.9 assists per game as well for UConn. You also get Braylon Mullins back, hit one of the most famous shots in March Madness history against Duke in that Elite Eight game. I will tell you, so right now I'm recording this podcast. I have our 9-month-old-ish puppy / teenager dog at this point. He was sleeping at the time, so I didn't want to wake him, but I jumped up and down, went crazy without saying a word when Braylon Mullins hit that shot, because in the insider subscriber community, hey, winner of the bracket challenge gets to be on the show. Who won? Me. I won. And then I just won. We'll leave it at that. Okay. So Silas Demery back, Braylon Mullins back. He averaged 12 points per game last year as well. You're also adding for UConn Nick Heminya, I believe is how you pronounce that, from Duke. And then UConn at home. I mean, the numbers are insane. 16-0 at home in 2023-24 season. And then over the last 3 in all, they're 45-4 at home. That is the home record for UConn. Ohio State, of course, plays this game at UConn, and therefore it's going to be tough for Jake Diebler and his troops to go in there and win that game. But crazier things have happened, right? Appalachian State once beat Michigan in a football game when Appalachian State wasn't even FBS yet. So crazier things have happened, I guess we can say. All right. Next game for Ohio State that is in the must-watch territory, it is Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, is there any team in college basketball right now with a green arrow pointing up, the greenest of any green color for any program other than for Vanderbilt? They tried all the things to try to right the ship, hiring Bryce Drew, hiring Jerry Stackhouse. Over 8 seasons, it led to a combined 110 and 151 record. One NCAA tournament, which was the first year of Bryce Drew, a long time ago. 0 NCAA tournament wins. And then Mark Byington comes to Vanderbilt, and he pretty much immediately rights the ships. 2 seasons, 2 NCAA tournament appearances, 1 NCAA tournament win already, an incredibly close loss to Nebraska. That was such a fun night, by the way. That night of college basketball, I think it was a Thursday or Friday night, maybe a Saturday even. Don't believe it was a Sunday, but at least for me, had some severe weather rolling through, which to me, that warms me. That warms me a lot. It makes me feel happy. Okay, I love watching a good radar. However, I will say there was a game on CBS. It might have been this one that I just couldn't see for a while because we've got like severe storms, tornado stuff coming through, which I get is important, but so is watching the end of Vanderbilt, Nebraska, if you ask me. Maybe that's short-sighted me. Just learn how to read a radar, folks. It's not that hard. It's not that hard at all. So Vanderbilt, 47-22 over the past 2 years with Mark Byington. It went from a 42% winning percentage with Drew and Stackhouse to a 68% winning percentage under Mark Byington in 2 years. Now, Vanderbilt, as they head into this season, according to Torvik, 24th best team in college basketball. Again, Ohio State is 18th. So the Buckeyes projected to be the better team this year, at least by Torvik. Now, if you look at other ratings and rankings out there, you'll see these teams kind of flip-flopped and mismatched and all those different types of things, but Vanderbilt expected to be a good team. The good thing for Ohio State, this game is at home. It is, again, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Vanderbilt returning Tyler Tanner. He had a chance to go to the NBA draft. I would just say, I would guess Vanderbilt didn't really know what Tyler Tanner was going to do for the days leading up to his decision to whether he'd stay in the NBA draft or not. That could make it stressful when you get an NBA caliber player potentially coming back, potentially not. He does return to Vandy. He could be one of the very best two-way players in all of college basketball next season. He averaged 19.5 points per game last year while shooting 49% from the field, and he added 5.1 assists per game. He also had an elite 98th percentile, very, very elite 98th percentile steal rate. Never fouled out in a game for the Commodores last year. Now, there's other things, of course, going on with this game in particular. Ohio State and Vanderbilt, there's some history there. Jake Diebler, of course, coached at Vanderbilt. When was that? I put that in the article today. Views from the Schott podcast.substack.com. Where is that? Just give me a second. I'll find it. Okay. I know it's bad to be doing this, especially on YouTube. This is going to kill the retention, but what are you going to do? Ohio State's only home game against Power 5 opponent will be Tuesday before Thanksgiving. The Buckeyes play Vanderbilt, blah, 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 blah. Jake Diebler was at Vanderbilt. Did I really just wait? I wasted 15 seconds to tell you that Jake Diebler was at Vanderbilt from 2016 to 2019. You're welcome. So you got that history. You've also got the fact that Joel Justice, associate head coach at Ohio State over the past 2 years, leaves Ohio State to join Vanderbilt as well. So you've got some history there. But look, I think this Vanderbilt team could be really, really good this year. I think Torvik probably rates them okay. Some other people maybe underrating them. You got Burke Buchenchel. Yeah. From Nebraska, number 10 recruiting class in the country as well. Outside of UConn, this could be the best defense that Ohio State plays. Maybe Kansas is better, but this is going to be a very good team defensively for Vanderbilt as well. And again, you get Tyler Tanner there. That's a real guard that Ohio State is going to have to defend and get defended by. Probably going to be Justin Pippen on Tanner in that matchup. So that'll be an interesting one as well. The only one Ohio State has at home, that's going to be a big one for the Buckeyes. Then Ohio State plays Kansas. Weird year for Kansas last year. You had the whole Darren Peterson saga, which I asked some people around the program, and I said, hey, how would this team be different if you had Darren Peterson on the team this year? And in this exact same situation unfolds where sometimes I'm playing, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I feel well, sometimes I want to go to bed and maybe not participate or just sit on the sideline. I feel more comfortable sitting on the bench in this game against Arizona State or whatever it was for Darren Peterson last year. And they basically said, I don't know. Haven't really thought about it, because when you're around a program like Ohio State, you're kind of focused only on Ohio State throughout the season. Makes sense. Bill Self at the end of the year kind of almost left. He didn't leave Kansas, but it sounded like for a second there he was thinking about it. So that happened. And then over the summer, what happens? Well, Kansas and Bill Self, they pick up a big-time recruit in 5-star Tyron Stokes. Messy recruitment, to say the least. But overall, Kansas, number 10 according to Torvik. This is the best team ranked by Torvik that Ohio State will play in the non-conference at 10th overall. Tyron Stokes is a player that we should probably talk about a little bit here. Coming in as a 5-star, the number 1 overall recruit in the class of 2026. Long, explosive, exceptional, getting to the rim, developing his shot a little bit, but this is a guy who we matched up on Amari Bynum, and it's going to give plenty of work to Amari Bynum when he's matched up here on Stokes in this game. Again, this is CBS Sports Classic, New York City. A lot of intrigue for this game between these two brands. Kansas overall has the number 3 freshman class in the nation, only behind Arkansas and Duke. You've also got Taylon Kinney coming in at Arkansas. He's top 20-ish. He's a 5-star point guard for Kansas. Out of the portal, Kansas grabs Keanu Dawes from Utah and Leroy Blyden Jr. from Toledo as well. Of any of these teams, I think Kansas probably feels like the biggest wild card. You have the situation with Tyron Stokes. You've got Bill Self. What is he going to do? Is he going to come back? He does decide to come back. I don't think it really matters at this point, especially because it's going to be right before Christmas for this game. But Kansas feels like the most wild cardy of the teams that Ohio State plays in the non-conference this year. And those are the games that I would say are the must-win for Ohio State. There's one other that you got to keep an eye on, and that's Notre Dame. I tell you what, when Micah Shrewsbury left Penn State for Notre Dame, I thought to myself, hey, I could see that working out. Instead, Notre Dame enters the season number 83. 83rd, according to Torvik, heading into the season. I mean, Micah Shrewsbury, his best record over 3 seasons now in South Bend is 15-18. Now, I will say Notre Dame did almost beat Ohio State last year in the Schott. Buckeyes won that game. What was the final score in that one? Let's go to the Substack and find out. Final score in that game was 64-63. Of course, it was Christoph Tilley who hit the game-winning layup for Ohio State in that one. What's Christoph Tilly up to these days? Beats me. Notre Dame brings in a pair of freshmen who could contribute, both of whom did visit Ohio State. Jonathan Sanderson, son of a former Buckeye, currently on staff at at Notre Dame, and Gon Orende Salongo. Don't know if I pronounced that right. I'll figure it out before the Notre Dame game. Got a mix of transfers. Devin Brown, yes, the same Devin Brown who had some interest from Ohio State. Ohio State eventually backed off on him. He comes into Notre Dame. Bryce Dortch from Rutgers. Braden Smith, not that Braden Smith. Braden Smith from Gonzaga. And who else do they have on this roster, according to my notes? Ethan Roberts, Logan Duncombe from Penn and Winthrop, respectively. Those are the two highest rated transfers, at least according to 247 Sports. But there's just no star power on this team again. Over the past 3 years, best record that Notre Dame has turned in under Micah Shrewsbury has been 15-18. So with that said, I don't know. I mean, are you really that worried about Notre Dame? No, but the reason that it's a big deal for Ohio State is because this is an away game. I'm thinking at worst, this is a quad 2 game. Let's see. Net rankings. Let's see if I can find some net rankings. Where did Notre Dame finish last year? This will give us a good idea. And because this game Notre Dame was 95th last year, finishing 13-18. This should be within the top 130 or top 135, whatever it is that qualifies as a quad 2 game. I don't expect this to be a quad 1 game for Ohio State, but away wins are huge, and a quad 2 win is better than a quad 3 win. It's better than a quad 2 loss too, so you'll take that. You'll take the win over the loss when you're playing Notre Dame. So we'll see how that game goes. But that said, those are the big games to watch, I would say, for Ohio State and for Jake Diebler, the Buckeyes right now. They've got 5 Power 5 non-conference games. Obviously, Kansas, Vanderbilt, probably Kansas, BYU. I don't know what the headliners are, honestly. I guess BYU because it starts the year. That's going to be a big one. Kansas and the CBS Sports Classic, that'll be a big one as well. Vanderbilt will be big. Obviously, UConn's going to be huge at UConn. That's what Jake Diebler has at this point. As we look at where Ohio State needs to be to feel good going into January, the question is, how many games can they not lose? Well, I think you've got 7 bye games, and those games all have to be wins. There's no question about that. When you go up and you play Youngstown State, that's your home opener. You've got Marshall, Prairie View, A&M. You've got UMBC. Don't get shocked by them. Lipscomb, Stony Brook, and Mississippi Valley State. Mississippi Valley State, back when we were doing banger bets last year, and then I stopped, and then we went on a heater during March Madness. It was absolutely insane. Mississippi Valley State is a team we bet on like twice. They're so bad. They are so bad. So bad. So bad. That said, second worst team, according to Torvik, right now, heading into 2026-27. All those games must be wins for Ohio State. You got to go 7-0 in those bye games. Outside of that, to feel good, and by good, I mean, you're not feeling great. You're not feeling like this is the best team in the nation, the best team in the Big Ten, but you feel like, yeah, we're where we want to be heading into January. You got to win at Notre Dame. If you want to feel good, you have to win at Notre Dame. That's even if you happen to take the Big Four and you win 3 out of 4. You have to win at Notre Dame because Notre Dame, it helps the resume with that away win. It's the only true away game on the non-conference slate that obviously isn't a neutral site game as well, other than UConn. Notre Dame obviously feels a lot more winnable than UConn. Helps the resume, should be a quad 2 win at worst. So you got to win that game. That gets you to 8-0. Then in those final Big Four games between Kansas, BYU, Vanderbilt, and UConn, what do? I think as long as you split those games, you can feel good. I think the more winnable of those games are BYU. They're the lowest ranked team according to Torvik. I think underrated, but still lowest ranked team according to Torvik, and that number does matter to us at this point. You also get Vandy at home. You should be favored in both of those games. If you can win both of those games and you lose at UConn by 15, I'm not complaining. You lose to UConn by 5. I'm not complaining. Just don't get Auburned like you did, 2 or 3 years ago? Kansas, that game as well. If you happen to drop it, those are the 2 highest rated teams on your schedule right now. You end heading into January 10-2. That doesn't include the 2 non-conference games that Ohio State will play, or maybe 3 non-conference games heading into January. You're at what? 10-2, maybe 11-3 heading into the new year. I think that's where you want to be. Let's say you get 10-2 out of those 12 games, and then you split the non-conference. You're 11-3, or maybe 12-3, or 11-4 heading into January. That's going to be a good spot for Ohio State. I think if you're benchmarking where the Buckeyes need to go, it's 10-2. You take losses, those two losses to any combination of Kansas, BYU, UConn, and Vanderbilt. I just can't. I can't watch Ohio State lose against Notre Dame and then in mid-December come back with a recap episode and saying, it's not a big deal. That's not a good look for Ohio State. If you want to feel good, that's where you want to be, is 10-2. So another question I think we have at this point is, what does this schedule say about Jake Diebler? What does this schedule say about Ohio State and the Buckeyes at this point? Look, Notre Dame was already there. Okay, that's finishing up a home and home that started last year. CBS Sports Classic was already there. We already knew Ohio State was going to play Kansas, but the new teams added UConn, Vandy, BYU. This is now the second time in 3 years that Ohio State plays a real team. To start the year with BYU. You're going to drink out of a fire hydrant to start the season for a second time in 3 years for those freshmen. 2024 Ohio State beat Texas 80-72. I think that it probably says Jake Diebler, he wants to get after it. He wants his team to get after it. You saw what happened last year against IU Indy. Maybe even during this show spoke to someone who said, hey, I think that IU Indy was more fired up to play against Ohio State than Ohio State was to play against IU Indy last year in the Schott. It was a weird game, high pace, high tempo, full court pressure, just a weird game. So I don't know that game has anything to do with starting the season against BYU. Was maybe there's some incentive there for Ohio State to head out to Salt Lake City for a quote unquote neutral site game against BYU? Yeah, potentially I'd say so. But in general, this is an opportunity for Ohio State to start strong. You look at returning John Mobley Jr., coming back, entering his name in the NBA draft, coming back to Ohio State. That's really, really big for Ohio State. You've got Amari Bynum coming back as well. You've got a roster overall that looks like, on paper, it is going to be the strongest that Jake Diebler has had. And it's not just John Mobley Jr. It's not just, you've got Anthony Thompson as well. You've got Jimmy Williams. You watch some highlights of him. If you're watching on YouTube, he's going to come back for Ohio State in his first year and potentially be huge for Ohio State off the bench as a spark for the Buckeyes. And you look at other transfers. Andrea Yelovich. You've got Josh Ojawuna, who didn't play last year, but comes in this year. Overall, on paper, this is the best team that you're going to get the chance to see under Jake Diebler, and this is going to be the hardest schedule, I think, that Ohio State has had under Jake Diebler as well with these teams. I think one other thing we learn about Ohio State at this point, Buckeyes not interested whatsoever in taking quad 3 home losses. You're risking basically nothing with this home court schedule. Stony Brook is 231st in Torvik. No one else is in the top 250. Mississippi Valley State is the second worst team in college basketball, according to Torvik. They were awful last year. I guess they're going to be awful this year too. I don't know. But that said, they're not risking playing a George Washington. They're not risking playing a Pitt like they have in years past, or a Pacific, or a Davidson. One of those types of teams that probably would be a quad 2 or potentially quad 3 game. Buckeyes not interested in that. They want to play quad 1 games, quad 2 games. I guess they'd rather Notre Dame be quad 1, but that's going to be a quad 2. Quad 2 games out of conference is not something they're really interested in. In quad 3 games, not something they're interested in. They want quad 4 or quad 1, because quad 4, they feel like, hey, we're probably going to win this game. We're going to be favored by 25 points. Quad 3 maybe gets a little bit more risky. You just feel like there's more to lose in quad 4 games, but a less likelihood of losing those games, whereas the quad 1 games, quad 2 games mean so much for the Buckeyes and for Jake Diebler. So this is kind of a make or break year for Ohio State. This is kind of a make or break year for Jake Diebler. It is the most talented roster Jake Diebler has had. It's the most deep roster Jake Diebler has had. And it will all come to a head this year when Ohio State plays the far and away most difficult schedule it has had to play under Jake Diebler so far, with Kansas, with UConn, with Vanderbilt, with BYU. This is a bit of a gauntlet in the non-conference. And don't forget, by the way, Ohio State knows its Big Ten opponents as well. It doesn't know the dates, it doesn't know the times, but it knows it will play Michigan twice, it will play Iowa twice. And the road schedule for Ohio State this year in Big Ten play is incredibly challenging. So, best roster on paper Jake Diebler has had. going up against the best schedule Ohio State has had to play as well. So rubber's going to meet the road this year for Ohio State and Jake Diebler.